I wanted to break down why making peace with the worst case scenario is so important for OCD and anxiety recovery. Because when I ask people, what is your worst case scenario? It's often followed by, I don't want to say because it's so bad. Now that is that's the response that I get for understandable reasons, because that's why it's your worst case scenario, because you're absolutely petrified of it. However, when you tell me your worst case scenario, and the main fear that you're scared of happening, or the thoughts that you're having, or this means this means that, what I ask you is, okay, let's look at it into a different light. Let's look at your worst case scenario at a different angle, in a different perspective. And what I mean by that is, let's say your worst case scenario is true. Let's say it did happen. Now, the question I've got for you is, what good outcomes can be achieved if your worst case scenario comes true? And not only good outcomes, think of what can you still be grateful for in life if your worst case scenario is true. Also, what can you learn? What can you benefit from? So what can you learn from the struggle? So let's say your worst case scenario is going to jail. What can you learn from that? Let's say your worst case scenario is being single or leaving your partner. What can you learn from that? So let's break that down. Let's use that one as an example. So I speak to a lot of our OCD sufferers where the fear is, in the worst case scenario, is them being single, them being alone. Absolutely petrified that their partner might split up with them, or that they have to make the decision to split up with their partner. Now, what I would say is, okay, now what good outcomes can be achieved? And they say, Sam, no good outcomes. No, that'd be the worst thing ever. Well, hang on a minute. That's a 0 to 100 catastrophizing. That's a very extreme, over the top reaction. Because what you're implying there, you're implying that there'd be nothing good coming out of being single. Well, which isn't true at all, because being single, there's pros and cons to everything. There's pros and cons to being in a relationship. There's pros and cons to being rich. There's pros and cons to being poor. There's pros and cons to every situation in life. Okay, so if you're terrified of being single, let's look at it. So you might enjoy being single. You might find a better partner in the future. You might find that you've got more time for yourself, or more money for yourself, or what else can be? That even if you were alone, maybe you had to then move out the house, maybe you then had to sort of not speak to sort of the friends and the family right into that relationship, then yes, that would be quite sad, that'd be quite upsetting, of course. But would it be the end of the world? Well, no, because you could spend more time doing what you want to do. You're not saying you would like this. You're not saying it would be good, because it's your worst case scenario. So you're not trying to say overnight, yeah, that'd be fine, I'll just deal with it. Well, of course, we want to look at it in a different angle and see that it's not the worst thing in the world. It could be a lot worse than that. Of course it could. But when we're so fixated on our worst case, when we're so consumed by our worst case, we can't see a way around it. We just see it as, no, that'd be terrible. We get an anxiety spike thinking about it. But all we're doing is breaking it down, seeing it rationally. Okay, so if you were single, let's say the fear again was splitting up with your partner. Now, you could find someone better, for example. You could still travel by yourself. You can still eat very good food by yourself. You can still read an amazing book and be completely engrossed by a book. You can still learn about philosophy, learn about acceptance, learn about anything, educate yourself on anything whilst being single. You can still eat really good food. You can still watch a good film. I don't think I've said that. You can still watch a good film. You can still go out and drink. You can sit in a restaurant by yourself, eat good food, have a glass of wine completely by yourself. Now, what I'm saying here is that that's not an ideal scenario. But the worst case scenario isn't going to be an ideal scenario, hence why it's your worst case scenario. Because me personally, some of the best interaction, the best moments in my life, I've been with other people, been with my partner, been with friends, been with family, yes. But if that was taken away from me, I'd adapt and I'd adjust, okay? People tend to think they'll just live in fear for the rest of their life. Well, or they'll just be so consumed by guilt or anxiety or panic if the worst case was true, or just be so utterly depressed, which you might be. But the reason that's fueling is because of your current beliefs on the worst case scenario. Okay? There are people out there living your worst case scenario. For example, with me, my worst case was going to jail for the rest of my life and living with chronic guilt or being stuck forever. Or maybe you've done something bad, you can never be let off the hook. That was my worst case scenario. But then I broke down that even life in jail, although I wouldn't want to be in jail, of course, that I could adjust, I could accept why I'm in there, and try and maximize enjoyment, try and maximize pleasure, try and maximize things that I want to do, even though it'd be very challenging, very restricting, of course. And I try and limit and I try and minimize pain and try and minimize things that I don't want. Of course, that's what you do in life anyway. But just because you're in jail, just because you're in any mental hospital, anything, you can still try and aim for things that you want to do. So you try and maximize enjoyment, you try to maximize happiness, and you try and avoid things that cause pain and displeasure. Okay, and that's like with anything. Because people say, yeah, but Sam, I just couldn't see, no, I'd have to kill myself. It would be the worst thing ever. I just couldn't stand it. I just couldn't possibly bear it. And just such an extreme catastrophizing. There's no rationale behind that thinking, because you're saying, well, if that happens, I might as well be dead. But like I said, there are people living in your worst case scenario, and they're probably happy, and there's no guarantee, but I imagine most of the people are happy. You think some people, let's say, been married for 30 years and they split up with their partner, and they probably were absolutely dreading that, and they turned out, well, I'm actually happier now without them. Or maybe I found someone better. Maybe if I've enjoyed single life, maybe I've spent more time to myself doing things that I want to do. It's not saying you want to be single, not saying you want to leave your partner, you have to leave your partner, but even if that happened, even if that was true, how you would adjust to that, how you would, you'd look for alternatives, wouldn't you? You wouldn't just, if you split up with someone and there's a healthy desire to be in a relationship, of course it is, if you want to be that, but then you're then shutting the door of all the things you could do when you were single, okay? Because if you're just so focused on, right, I need to be in a relationship, I need to have a partner, I need this to be happy, I need this to accept myself, well, no, you're actually missing out on all the things that you can do whilst you're single, and whilst that thing is not there, okay? So it's very important to remember this. Now, you can use the worst case scenario in any situation. When I was suffering really bad with health OCD, the worst case scenario was getting cancer and dying. So it's very difficult because people say, yeah, but Sam, I don't want to die. No, I know you don't want to die. I don't want to die either. If I got diagnosed with cancer tomorrow, I'd be very upset and I'd be very sad because I don't want to die and I love my life. However, I completely understand and have accepted that we all die. I'll just be dead sooner than expected. I'll be sooner than I'd like, but all that done was my death date would have just been brought forward. Okay, and I can also learn a lot from the struggle with cancer, with the experience of having cancer. Maybe I would, I read an article the other day, and the person who had cancer was actually quite thankful for it, because they then viewed life in a way they'd never viewed it before. They then saw things that they never saw before. They then didn't take anything for granted and really, really took in life. Now, of course, it's very sad that they then die. However, if they didn't have cancer, didn't have that experience, then they would have missed out on many things. If you just live in quite an irrational black and white life, you'd have missed out on many, many things that you didn't take in. Now, because of the cancer struggle, because of the cancer journey, same with OCD, same as the OCD struggle, OCD journey. If I didn't have this, then I would take, I don't take anything for granted now. I'm so plugged into life. I'm so energized. I'm just very grateful for things, just excited for the smallest of things. But that's because of the OCD suffering, because I've known what it's like to suffer and to struggle, and every day felt like hell, and that internal torture and that mental battle in your head 24/7. If I didn't have that, then I'd imagine I'd be very rational, very black and white, be thinking, well, what's the point of that kind of thing? Or what's good about that? What's exciting about that? At times, if you meet me in person, what you realise, I am very, I point things out, like nature, for example. I take that in, I'm very engrossed by that. Well, with OCD, I wasn't. I just thought, what's so exciting about it? What's so good with that? Because I was so caught up in my own mind. Things like that didn't mean anything to me. I didn't care about these things because I was so consumed with irrelevant false memory OCD, convinced I did something wrong in the past, convinced I was going to jail, convinced I was a bad person. Same with harm OCD. Convinced that, oh my God, these thoughts are just as terrible. I can't deal with these intrusive thoughts. When I was stuck with health OCD, it was, well, what's the point anyway, Sam? Because you're going to be dead within 5 days. You're going to be dead next month. So what's the point of enjoying this? That's how it felt. Okay. Now, you often hear that I am very, very thankful for the OCD journey. From the tools that I've learned, from the lessons that I've learned have been absolutely invaluable. Now, that's not to downplay. That's not to say the suffering was easy. The suffering was horrendous. Very difficult suffering. If you saw me 5 years ago, you wouldn't believe how different I was. I was crying all the time. My first therapy call with Rob, my first coaching call, he couldn't hear me through the tears. Utterly housebound, living in complete avoidance, mental restriction, living in a mental bubble. I couldn't leave the house. I put on a load of weight, avoiding everything. just felt completely demotivated, which is understandable because most people do along the journey, because if you're consumed by chronic anxiety and chronic guilt and panicking all the time, it's hard to feel motivated. But I'm thankful for that, because I now see life very differently. Okay, so yeah, I mean, without that, it was not just dealing with OCD, it's any problem in life, any adversity, any issue that comes our way, any challenge that we face, because I'm recovered from OCD, but hassles still happen. There are still moments in my life that are a pain in the ass. For example, I've just had to sort my car insurance out. I don't like doing tasks like that, but I just got on with it and do it, and not not moan, not complain, not vent, because things need to be done. Now, that's a very small problem in my life. That's done within about an hour. What happened the other day? My laptop broke down. Completely crashed, which is frustrating because it affects work, it affects things that I'm passionate for, it affects what I want to do. But rather than, I still get frustrated, I still get annoyed because it's something I do not want to happen. But rather than chucking the laptop at the wall, even though you might get 2 seconds of feeling like I want to chuck that laptop at the wall, that's not going to resolve anything, that's not going to fix anything. So the point is, I still get frustrated, but I just view it rationally. Okay, well, where's venting, where's complaining, where's whining going to get me? Absolutely nowhere. Where is dealing with the problem and trying to fix it going to get me? Well, is this going to try and overcome your problem and get you to a stage where you want to get to? It's going to help you achieve your goals again. And goals might lead to happiness. Goals might lead to long-term freedom. Okay. Car broke down the other day. Complete pain in the ass. Very frustrating. Driving along, the overheating light came on the dashboard. Big pain in the ass. But rather than screaming and blaming the mechanic and saying, why has this happened to me? No point playing the victim. Okay, it's a pain. Let's try and fix this. It's frustrating. I'm human. Healthy reaction, frustration, but no chronic anxiety, no chronic anger, no chronic depression, no rage, no pity, no vengeance, revengefulness, all these things that people go down just because things are going wrong. I'm just talking about basic life-to-life problems that happen. Of course, there are much more bigger problems that I fully get that, but I'm just talking about sort of my own journey. Now, if you think about people who have been maybe scammed or hacked out of a lot of money, or gave into a scam, and complete sympathy, complete compassion, of course, because that's a very difficult situation to be in. Of course, it's not nice at all for anyone. But what you're doing there, the worst case scenario is that you've lost money, which is very, very frustrating, and the last thing that you want, of course, because money is a huge bonus, money is a huge help in life. But if you're saying it's the worst thing ever, I can't stand it, I might as well kill myself, and of course you're going to feel anxious, you're going to feel chronically anxious, you're going to feel chronically depressed. Okay, so rather than going, right, how do I do as much as I can to fix this problem and to overcome this problem, it leaves you in a much better stead. Rather than thinking, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. Why does this have to happen to me? Why can it happen to Joe Bloggs down the road? Why can it happen to her down the road? Why is it me? Why me? Why me? Why me? Well, that kind of attitude gets you nowhere, because you're playing the victim. You're saying that you owed something. You're saying that you're entitled to, the universe owes you something, that it just can't happen to you because you are this above, holier than thou, godlike figure. But this obviously isn't true, because problems happen to everyone. OCD doesn't discriminate. Life problems doesn't discriminate. Hence why kids die of cancer. Hence why people go to jail for doing things maybe they haven't done, that's sort of been misaccused. Hence why people get ill. Hence why people get really severe injuries, which affects their career. Hence why people have serious accidents, which completely life-altering accidents. And these things happen because this is life, and this is the realities and the hardships of life. So I'm not being totally morbid, not being all doom and gloom, but I'm very aware of the realities and challenges of life, because this is how we get to a stage of robust recovery. You're not living in a fairy tale life, in a fairy tale land, la la land. You're not living in, oh yeah, it was all rosy. No, of course. Even being recovered from OCD, life isn't rosy. There are things that go wrong in my life all the time. Okay, mistakes that I make, things that I do wrong, I could have done better. That's not to say all I do is make mistakes, but I don't see mistakes as doing bad, or I don't see mistakes as bad, because I'm always looking to overcome and learn from that. Now, without the OCD suffering, I wouldn't have been in that kind of mindset, because, oh shit, oh no, if I make a mistake, oh no, I'm responsible for this, oh no, I can't deal with the consequence, blah, 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 which is very extreme, very irrational, because you're then shutting the door on any change. Humans are ever changing. We are an ever changing process. This is how we evolve. This is how we adapt. This is how we learn over time. If you go back to the cavemen days, if you go back to the cavemen era, or not even that far ago, if you go back 100 years ago, 150 years ago, people making mistakes. You look at surgical operations, look at medical operations, things where they just used to chop people's arms off just like that. where they just do things where you look back and go, bloody hell, like how did they not think of anything better? But that's how humans evolve, because they've learned, okay, there's a better way of doing that, and that all adapted quite quickly and quite rapidly. But when they didn't know any way, then of course they had to then mess up to learn from that. Okay, and that's like with anything that goes wrong. Okay, how can I learn from it? Even if the worst case scenario happened, okay, what can I learn from that? Even if I lost my house, lost everything, lost my money, and lost my car, homeless in the street, I'd try and rebuild my life. I'd be very upset. It's not something that I want, but I certainly wouldn't go, oh, this is the worst thing ever, I might as well kill myself, because then you're shutting the door on all hope. You're shutting the door on getting better at all, aren't you? So you've got to view it as, okay, I really dislike this current situation that I'm in, but how do I look to overcome this? How do I look to change my life in order with my goals? So for example, if I was homeless, I'd then set a goal to then have a house, or to have a job to allow me to then buy the house, or to rent, or whatever. So rather than just dwelling on the negative, rather than just focusing solely on the negative, which people do, which humans do, especially OCD sufferers, I hear it all the time. Yeah, but Sam this, yeah, but Sam that. But with that thinking gets you nowhere, at all. Because you can't get to a stage of recovery just being totally negative. You've got to cling on to that, even when it feels like there's no hope at all. That crumb of hope, that ounce of hope, I clung on to that. And that's what's got me here today. Because even when I felt utterly crap, and bombarded by OCD, just felt so, every day just felt like a chore, or more than a chore, just felt like a mental battlefield in your head. It felt like there was no enjoyment. What's the point? What's the point even getting out of bed because OCD is going to do this, or I'm going to feel this crap, or just felt nothing else mattered. So I just thought, yeah, but then I saw recovery stories. I saw that I know I could get better, because you maybe you're having a couple of good days, or maybe you had a good hour, or good 5 minutes. And I just cling on to that and go, okay, well, there's hope, I can get better. Don't think for a second that I don't know what that's like in those worst days. I've lived that. We've all of us on the team have lived that. This is how we are where we are today. We haven't just read the book on OCD. Oh yeah, that sounds very tough. Yeah, do this, do that. No. When you've been to the depths of hell, when you've been to rock bottom, the worst moments with OCD, where it just feels like your life's completely fell apart. Oh, why is it working for them but not working for me? I've been there, so I fully get that. Okay, so we've got to try and be more flexible to how we think about things. Perspective, our beliefs on things, because even the worst case scenario, even the worst cases of OCD come in to us all the time. I'm around OCD every day. All of us are around OCD every day. It's what we do. So whatever you say to me or us on the team isn't going to be like, it's going to stump us. We're not like, oh my God, never heard that before. Even if it's something completely new, like a fear-wise or a new thought-wise, it's the same. Or okay, what are you scared of? What's the fear here? How do you overcome this? I don't go, right, yeah, that one's different. That means you're going to be stuck. No, because as soon as you say that, as soon as you then think that, you then see yourself as the exception. You see yourself as treatment resistant. You then see yourself as never ever going to get better from that, which doesn't help at all. Because even in the most difficult situations, even in the most challenging cases, not just with OCD, but other stuff going on in their life with OCD. You speak to someone who's homeless and with OCD, speak to someone who's got cancer and with OCD, speak to someone who's very little money, or maybe they're the opposite and have lots of money, but obviously dealing with fame can be very, very difficult. Having OCD on top obviously brings all kinds of challenges, but no point focusing and dwelling and solely just fixating on the negative. You've got to think, right, this is my situation. What am I scared of? What's the worst case scenario? How do I gradually break that down bit by bit so you're becoming less scared of that? Because OCD takes orders from beliefs. It goes after what you're scared of. It goes after what you cannot currently accept. And as you gradually chip away at that, that's how we get to long-term freedom and long-term recovery. And there's nothing in the past now that OCD could find or latch to that would disrupt my inner peace. Yes, I might have healthy concern about things. I might regret things. I might have the frustration and the annoyance and the disappointment about things, but there's nothing that can go with the chronic guilt again, because I've got the unconditional acceptance. I could accept myself even if I did a regrettable act. I wouldn't then rate myself. I wouldn't then judge myself, because I've got compassion for myself, but also I'm aware that I could adapt and adjust to the worst case scenario, even if I didn't like the worst case scenario. And there'd be things I could be grateful for, things that I could learn from it, and also good outcomes that could come from it as well. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a good 20 minutes. We're talking about worst case scenarios. I'm sure you can relate to this. Reading the books on a reading list are going to be very, very helpful for you. And getting in touch for one-to-ones and webinars will also be very, very helpful. So if you are interested in our webinars or one-to-ones, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com. and we'll get back to you. And after this video, a little page will come up, or a little screen will come up with the WhatsApp number where you can get in touch and get a one-to-one booked with one of our coaches. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll speak again. Bye-bye.